Thank you, Renee, for your bravery, and as I said earlier, you have my admiration for your for the role you're in, which as I said before, you've been thrust into and didn't ask for. And I thank Kimberly also for her comments, and actually the whole panel. I want to again say on behalf of the Pipeline Safety Trust Board that we appreciate your coming to our conference and participating, and especially doing this very difficult panel topic. And so if I could ask everybody just to applaud our panel and thank them for their participation. Carl has a microphone in his hand. I don't know if anybody has any questions they'd like to ask of any of the panel. Oh, back here, there's one. Oh.
Just one quick question. Would you, as councilmen and mayors, with the lessons that you've learned and how you work with your community, would you be able or willing to share just how you've been dealing with this with other communities and other elected officials and councilmen on just how kind of the steps that they would need to take to work with their communities?
Yeah, speaking as a mayor and a council member, that's why I'm here. We've spoken a lot frequently to the League of California Cities, to various other organizations that have asked us to talk about this, because people want to know. As I said on the first anniversary, that evening was not the time for regulators or regulations. It was an evening to kind of think about what we went through and our emotional fortitude. And going forward, that's why we're here. And I've talked to Carl about collaborating on a lot of these types of events. But it's really important to put a face on these disasters. We're finding out so much more than I ever, believe me, I think, in terms of trimming trees and filling potholes. And this changed my whole life and the lives of our council and our city. And what I told the press a lot in Washington, we made 4 trips, Connie's made 7 before the Senate. I told all the reporters that were there, I said, think about this. I said, you're writing about this today, you're interviewing us. When you go home tonight, you take your ties off, turn off your lights on your camera, and shut things down. This could have happened to you. This is not a San Bruno specific incident. This is a national incident that has to be dealt with. So.
I would just add that one of the interesting experiences that we've had is that suddenly we've been thrust into the need to respond to our residents, to take care of our residents, to do everything and anything that needed to be done. But we've been thrust into this new world of regulations and technical aspects of pipeline safety. And I think one of the things, or pipeline operations, one of the things that I've realized, and I think Jackson probably shares this experience, is that as much as we dive into that, we realize more and more how much we don't know. It's not our expertise. That is not our expertise. What our expertise is beyond telling the story, is trying to make sense out of it and trying to bring awareness and understanding of the effect of the operations on real people in real communities. That's what we know, and as we've gone forward over this year trying to figure out where do we go, what do we do, how do we respond to the hundreds of inquiries and requests for our participation, it's time for us to focus on what we know. And as the mayor said, this is what we know about, and we consider it now part of our mission.
If I may add one more thing, as I said, as a mayor, you don't think in terms of all of this national focus. And I was sort of appalled a number of months ago to see where in Washington, it seemed like potential regulations that would strengthen this industry were being watered down. I don't know if it's lobbyists or where it came from. And a lot of the talk was, it costs so many dollars per mile to do this kind of stuff. I said, divide it by 8. Divide it by the 8 angels that are on our shoulders right now. I said, think in terms of lives, not money.
Not this is particularly relevant, but I noticed when we looked at statistics that if you have X number of deaths over X period of time, they would zero out. They would say there was an average death of 0 when there were X more than that. And as a crime reporter, I was once told that 1 death is 100% homicide rate for your family. So the statistics, when people talk about the number of individual incidents that have gone down, the trend is down, and I think that that's true. The trend is down on a lot of things. I don't think we should try to make our cars less safe now that we've lowered homicide or rates of death in a vehicle to historic lows. More people are driving and fewer people are dying, but that's not the time to give up. And that's not the time to average out the number of deaths per thousands of miles driven to 0. And the same thing with plane crashes. So the key thing about reporting this is that we understand that people are doing their best to try to limit the damage or limit the numbers overall, but still those numbers have impact no matter how small they are until you really get to 0.
Ms. Jackson, you made a comment. You sustained more damage, or more damage occurred beyond engineering calculations. Could you explain what you meant by that?
I don't know the answer to that question. I can explain what I meant, but I don't know whether that's the case or not. What I know is that our highly trained, capable, committed first responders stood essentially helpless for 90 minutes. That tells me that there's more to the story, and this is what I meant. There's more to it than simply, I think I said, an engineering calculation. And I would urge you to consider that in how you evaluate regulations and operations, because it's counterintuitive at best to suggest that a fire that can't be offensively attacked does a certain quantifiable expected amount of damage. That's what I meant. I don't understand, I hope not to have to understand the, how you make the calculations. I urge you to understand that calculations can only take you so far.
Yep.
I think we have one last question.
As part of the pipeline industry, we spend billions, or actually millions of dollars, I should say, on public awareness materials. And one of the things that we try to do is get folks to open those materials, to read them, to come to the liaison meetings that we host all over the nation in many of the counties where we traverse. You'd mentioned that's not something you really paid attention to before, you weren't engaged, and the residents weren't aware. We are very interested in your feedback and your dialogue, and we appreciate your presentations today. We want to know how to get folks to care, how to engage, how to open those materials, how to develop those partnerships with us. Because it's not for naught. Obviously, we want folks to pay attention.
Well, I'll take a quick stab at the answer. And I'll tell you straight up, I don't have the right answer, but I think the answer comes out of a collaborative discussion that reviews and considers what does the public understand and what is it that will make those materials meaningful. We didn't pay enough attention. My guess is that the materials that our residents received didn't speak to them in a manner that we compelled them to pick it up off of the kitchen table and actually try and understand it. I can't tell you precisely what to do. Certainly, alarmist type of presentations is probably counterproductive. I think the answer, as Chairman Hart indicated earlier, comes out of a multi-party discussion, troubleshooting the issues, understanding how people think and what they really need, and bringing it back down to a very basic sort of human level is probably the right first step.
I would just add that I think you guys are kind of working at cross purposes. I mean, you've been telling the public for years that pipes are the safest form of transportation in the United States. Then you send them a letter and a bill insert and tell them, oh, you should be worried, or maybe not. Don't be worried. How do you, I mean, you've got a mixed message that I'm not so sure you want the people in their neighborhoods to come to you, because there's not a whole lot they can you can do about the fact that they don't like living near one of your pipelines. It's not like they can petition to have the pipeline removed. They can't even, San Bruno, it took a long time for them to get a commitment from PG&E that they weren't going to reopen the pipeline in the exact spot that it was when it blew up. These pipes are established by eminent domain, so sometimes they were there before people even lived there. They move in. It's not like it's in a disclosure form in their real estate thing in many cases. And so there's a lot of, I think, when you look at the whole picture, the public, when people get in a plane and they know it can crash, people get in a car and they know it can crash, but people just don't envision a pipeline, no matter where it is just going to blow up one day. And, for whatever reason. And a lot of times with a third party, at least there's someone there to know what happened and can get the first responders there quickly. But when you have a pipeline blow up in the middle of a neighborhood and people think it's a plane crash, nobody can get there, and people are basically, it wouldn't have mattered. You could have sent those people bill inserts every day. They still wouldn't have been prepared for what happened to them. And what are they supposed to do? I mean, if I know a pipeline's in my neighborhood, does that mean that I have to automatically think if there's an explosion that I've got to run and I only have seconds to live? I mean, these kind of things are just, I mean, I don't know as an industry how you would ever communicate. It's not a position. As a journalist, I just get to report after the fact. I mean, you have an obligation to tell people what they could face, but then you have a disconnect.
I want to say thank you again to our panel. That was all the questions that we're going to take for now because we need to break. And I hope that you continue to carry these stories that you've heard with you in your the rest of the sessions and when you go back home as well. Thank you.